chosen title for this year is The Impact of University Rankings on Higher Education Policies. And I would like to give the floor to Professor Ural Akbulut to begin with his welcome speech. Ural Hocam, buyurun.
Thank you. Dear participants, it's a great pleasure for me to host you today on the 6th International Symposium of URAP. And I would like to give my appreciation, and I would like to thank to our distinguished speakers who will share their valuable experiences today with us. And I am sure that this will be an unforgettable experience for all of us to listen to these distinguished speakers. Thanks again for joining us.
Thank you very much, Professor Akbulut. Just a small reminder, please feel free to type your questions into the chat box. After each presentation, we will direct them to our guest speaker at the end of their talks. And I would also like to remind that we are recording this meeting. So if you think you missed some part of it, you will be able to reach the presentations from our website. Now, I would like to invite Professor Hasan Mandal, President of TÜBİTAK, to deliver his lecture. His title is Benchmarking Universities in an R&D and Innovation Ecosystem for Co-Creating and Succeeding Together. Hasan Hocam, buyurun.
Okay, so thank you, Feza Hocam, Ural Hocam. So dear colleagues, ladies and gentlemen, so it's a great pleasure for me to be attend in this meeting. I also congratulate to URAP, under the leadership of the Ural Hoca and also his team that for the continuous efforts, especially since we are having the 6th URAP International Symposium. I hope that I'll do my best to be contribute on the base and on the expectation of the of this important symposium. The important means, I think from my sense that I think especially the topic has been just mentioned by Feza Hoca. I think is quite critical. So the impact of the university rankings on the base of the higher education policies. So in a sense of, I always claiming or giving a kind of an advice or a kind of at least from the TÜBİTAK side try to apply in a sense that rather than doing we should manage. So if we are talking about research management, I think one of the important issue on the how we can use the results more than the results, the impact of the rankings in higher education policies. And I can see many faces which I know of as a familiarity, and including our rectors. So which means that in the universities, normally we are saying that we are doing the research, but in effect of the leadership position of the rectors, more than the doing is that how we can manage it. So now I'll shift to my presentation. And I guess now you can see my screen. Yes. Okay, so the title has already been mentioned by Feza Hoca that in terms of based on the topic. So and I said on benchmarking universities in an R&D and innovation ecosystem of co-creating and succeeding together. So which means that in terms of the impact of the higher education university rankings on higher education policies, I think one of the critical issue is that, the type of challenges which we are facing, which I'm going to mention in the next transparency. So I think it's becoming much more important in a sense of the type of challenge which we are facing, more complex, more dynamic, and more changing dynamically. So therefore, so it's not only discover what we will do. I think the most important question is how we will do. So now I'm looking for, I think my slides are moving now. I am now in it's from the World Economic Forum report for the year 2022. So it is for the next 10 years, but also in the intervals of the, within 2 years and 2 years and 5 years and beyond 5 till 10 years. And if we check what type of challenges which we are facing in globally, and we can see that, in here, especially with the color of the two cars, so you can see that, I think the climate change, climate crisis, and on the base of this, how the climate crisis affecting social problems and also infectious disease and some other cyber risks. And of course, I don't want to go to the whole detail, but I want to put an emphasis on in here, especially when you see in this transparency, is that, in the second and the fifth, you can see within 2 years period, the third column is climate action failure. And you can see that one is in the second and fifth year is much higher, intensified more, and also in more than 5 years to 10 years period of the risk time is more than before. So which means that although it is expected to be, we can able to manage to overcome on climate action, but this is showing that unfortunately failure is increasing during the time period. So this is giving a kind of a message that the type of solutions which is produced by the governments, by the NGOs, by the academics, or any sense, but today I am going to more concentration on the universities side. So, which means that the current traditional way of dealing and solving this issue may not be possible. So therefore, to change this, risky conditions, so the way of find the solution is made different. And so therefore, I am claiming that the type of challenge which we are facing compared to the one we have already been experienced in the past, I think more difficult, more complex. And this is is a more fresh information from the COP27 meeting in Sharm el Sheikh in Egypt during the last 2 weeks. I have been also attended to the event and also give my contribution. So you can see that unfortunately we passed through this dotted line. So there is no chance for when we are moving for the year 2030 and also year 2050 goals, and in Turkey on 2053. So because it is expected in year 2030, so should be a reduction on 43% for today, but no country is saying that. Every country still delaying to the year of the 2035 or 2040. So therefore, it's a big challenge that we couldn't be able to unfortunately get to this dotted line, and everybody now is trying to keep on agenda on the green one, so keep it 1.5 degrees Celsius. But unfortunately for Turkey is a challenge because we have already been, although the world average 1.1, but Turkey has been reached unfortunately 1.4 because of the geography position which we are living. So therefore we have more challenges compared to some other maybe geographical positions around the world. And unfortunately the tendencies, so which means that the meaning of the failure is going to do either the yellow one or the red one, unfortunately. So this is under the current projection. It's we are moving either from the yellow or the red one. So this is quite critical. And in terms of how we are dealing with these challenges, so comparing the business world and the scientists, so the academia, so there's a kind of a comparison from the business world. So they can see these challenges compared to the academia, they are more interconnected. But in the case of the scientists, so it is, the message has been taken. So first of all, the impact is much more higher. Impact is expecting compared to business world, and also the type of interactions or the type of correlation between these challenges are quite interconnected. And so this is just as I said, is a message 2 days ago. will announce the end of the COP27. And I am very pleased to see and also to contribute to this action as well. So the number one is the science and urgency. So, I mean, you can see the others, I don't want to go to the details of, and they're all very, very important type of outcomes of the meeting, of the COP27. And the team worked together for implementation. So that one is, and the number one is the science and urgency. And especially after the COVID-19, that I mean, the science becoming is much more important, but one of the important critical issue as well, how we will make more science-based solutions on a more complex type of challenges. And again, this is a, I think, very recent report from the Nature Sustainability on year 2022. So which means that, I mean, we are facing for more difficulties, and so therefore the type of solutions which will be prepared, I think, will not be the same which we have been adopted or experienced in the past. So therefore, a new type of knowledge creation is needed. And looking for the type of ranking systems, yes, I mean, I have been put some of them in here, not all, but at least the 3, and also the includes the URAP is 4th of them in here. So the, I mean, the Times and the QS and the Shanghai ranking, and each of them trying to measure the different type of kind of outputs or impacts of the. But also I can see a kind of a, kind of an analysis. I don't know what the other speakers will make a type of a comment. So especially I am dealing, I mean, as TÜBİTAK, I am dealing with the more on subject-based type of rankings. And in here I'll compare only 2 on ARO and also and the URAP, and the next slide. So you can, I have made a type of analysis. I mean, for example, the top 50 universities in earth sciences and top 50 universities in energy science and engineering. I have been find that only the 9 of the universities are the same in both rankings, only 9. So the 41 are different. So which means that each university, I mean, maybe in the rankings in overall, it's giving a kind of a position in terms of the visibility and as a comparison in a competition. But end of the day, if you go to the more detail, I think it's important for the higher, for the thematical topic of this meeting, of this conference, is that the type of impact of this rankings on the higher education policies. So which means that there is a message from our side, which we can read, that there is competences in each university in a different type of area. So therefore, more in the type of collaboration, more than the collaboration is co-creation potentials. And also in here, from the URAP, on our AI and also the sustainable and renewable energy in terms of the subject. And in here, in URAP is in 21 are the same universities within first 50, and the 29 are different. So again, although it is maybe much more correlance, but still that there is a different type of competences even within the top 50 universities in terms of there is a room for collaboration and co-creation. So to overcome with the more complex type of challenges. So therefore, I'll move to our policy side. So how this type of rankings are affecting our, at least I am moving to the more in Turkey projections from the TÜBİTAK side. So there is how we are using these results and also the type of use and impact. So the knowledge creator and knowledge user, technology developer and technology user should work together. It doesn't mean I am not doing in the past. There were, but the type of interaction should be reversible. So which means that because the type of challenges are more complex, so therefore the type of solution cannot be resulted or achieved in one moment. So therefore the interaction should be reversible. And also we should think about, of course, open innovation is important, but more than this is always thought that, again, at least from our side, that the technological solutions are well enough, but not the case. So type of challenges, including COVID-19 and now more the climate actions. So it covering the more than technological solutions. So it's covering the, especially including the social and humanities as well, which means that the more society involved type of solutions becoming more critical. So the technology is a provider, but not by itself the solution. So therefore, the systematic challenge-driven innovation is becoming more important. And also that, so in that respect, so the rather than the collaboration, the co-creation is becoming a more important parameter. So in terms of our policies in TÜBİTAK, I don't want to go into detail because not the subject for today, but I mean on the left-hand side, so you can see the type of our priorities in there, especially after COVID-19, and of course we are talking about I mean the impact of the climate and also human-centric approaches, Industry 5.0, so which means that more sustainable, more agile, and also the more human-centric, and also the digitalization. And this is how it is affecting our knowledge creation models and also the co-creation of the human resources. So in here, I am sure that our Turkish colleagues in all different type of roles, either university rectors or the researchers or the policy officers. So I mean, this is, I think, kind of an issue of the kind of an impact of the rankings. We are always saying that, I mean, if you are managing the research in your university or your institute, so you should take care about all the funding mechanisms in once. So not only take the one or two, because these are okay funding mechanisms, but in overall, so it is giving a kind of an approach of the, in terms of the management side, so you need to be consider all the funding mechanisms to manage the all research system, at least from the TÜBİTAK side. So in here, so how we are using, how we are benefiting. So in here, so I'll try to show in two aspects. So in terms of the using the rankings in our systems, at least from the TÜBİTAK perspective. So in one side, so utilization of university rankings to promote the excellence in education, in research and impact. I'll give some examples. And some of them is given here: International Fellowship for Outstanding and Early Stage Researchers, Research University Side Technology Platforms, and Research University Support Programs. And in the other side, the second one on development of the new rankings. Okay, so also we are developing our own rankings. More are on inside, of course, we appreciate all the ranking organizations in here, but also development of new rankings to encourage the greater collaboration in broader R&D and innovation ecosystem. And one of them, two examples are given here. One is on our Entrepreneurial and Innovative University Index. Another one is the Research Universities Performance Monitoring Index. So what does it mean? I'm talking about the number one, so the utilization of university rankings to promote excellence, for example. So in terms of our international fellowship programs, now 190, the outstanding researchers come by using this program to Turkey. We are given the higher incentives. So in that case, we are using the rankings. So at least to start, not to the end, but at least to start at the minimum level that we are asking, that is on the base of the subject, it should be the researcher should come from the top 100, something like that. So therefore, in terms of the excellence, yes, we are using, but it is not as one of the important inputs, and we are using that one. And also, as I also said, we are using in terms of the co-creation platforms. Again, in that respect, so we are using the university rankings, and also especially the rankings on the basis of the subject. So if they are, how much is successful in specific subject. So we are saying that, okay, you should have a potential for the coordination of this platform. So again, so this is important in terms of the implementation. And some other type of platforms, and you can see in here, so I'm just trying to show that, yes, we are finding useful. Either it's the ranking in general or in terms of the subject base. And in the other side, also this is which we have been developing our own ranking or the monitoring systems. In here, for example, this is for the university research universities monitoring parameters. And also we are trying to put our our strategy. You can see many of them on the university-university collaboration, university-industry collaboration, on the base of the patent, on the base of the publication, on the base of the project. So this is also when in terms of our development stage, more on details. And so this is a kind of this is doing by Council of Higher Education. So it has been put 23 universities, 20 state and 3 foundation universities in terms of the rankings, and put the kind of an evaluation of the A1, A2, and A3 like that. I don't want to go to detail because this is a policy of the Higher Education Council, but on the base of the type of indicators has been mentioned in here, and we are putting our policy. So we are putting many items in here on the base of the attract or give them suggestion or recommendation for the make more collaboration and co-creation type of approaches. And in the other side, so the TÜBİTAK also is running a ranking system on the base of the entrepreneurial and innovative, and this which we think that also it is helping. And by using this opportunity, so 191 universities has been analyzed. I am sure that these experts are in here for as a speakers and also the urology. So we are using for the 1 million cell data set. So, and also we are collaborating with nearly 300 institutions, including of course universities within Turkey, in Turkey. So to get the right data. And in here, so you can see the type of 23 indicators on the research competence and intellectual property pool, and also the cooperation and interaction. So this is also an important, and also the economical contribution and commercialization. So like that. Yes. So these are some of the the results from the last year, and we will, by using this opportunity, we will announce the results also within the month of December for the year 2022. Yes, also we can see especially which university or which university categories are giving a kind of a potential in terms of doing more collaboration. And these are very fresh information that has been published yesterday. At least we have been achieved yesterday on the annual G20 scorecard of at least I can say about the performance of Turkey, Turkish universities especially. And in here, so it's a comparison with the G20. It's a clear first message that the number of publication has been, in terms of at least the trend is decreased, but in terms of the impact is a better position than year before. So this, I think, is a good sign that also showing that the university is getting the right message in terms of the rankings, using more impact-oriented type of journals and the papers. And so you can see that at least Turkey is above the G20 average, especially on the type of journals, the papers is coming out for Turkey International has been called like that. So it is coming out with the joint publication with the international partners. And in here also showing in the same respect. So in terms of the, again, output and collaboration and impact and collaboration. So it is, we are above in G20 countries. But of course, I am talking about Turkey international perspective. And this is also, the last one in here. So it is as a comparison on the basis of the discipline as an impact, and also showing an open access. And there is also positive messages. This is enough? No, of course not. But at least that the rankings has been kind of making changing the ecosystem in higher education that make the life that the universities or the researchers are going to be more impact-oriented type of approaches. And finally, I'll mention on the international partnerships, and this is one of the important partners for Turkey, and is of course the European programs, and has been last month has been announced by the European Commission on Turkey on year 2022 report, and this has been mentioned in terms of our progress in especially compared with the European Commission in Horizon Europe. So Turkish preparations in the area of science and research are well advanced. So this is mentioned directly by the report by the European Commission, and also Turkey made a good progress during the reporting period. So this is, I think, is giving a good sign that we will have more impact oriented. And last week we have been in the European Commission to work together how we can make more impact. There was a high-level dialogue meeting on science, research, technology, and innovation on these 4 topics with the European Commission is in November 15, exactly a week ago. And there is a very good messages, I mean, to make a more, collaboration with the European Commission on to work on the new, especially on the polls. And these are some kind of results. It is giving a good results, I mean, which we can read the right messages from the, again, I am always using the saying, referring to the rankings as well. So because we are putting, especially in our national rankings, that the performance in the European projects, and in the end of the 1.5 year, so we got a return back 90 million euro. This is on 18-month performance on Horizon Europe. It is nearly triple compared to the Horizon 2020. So this is also giving a kind of a potential. And more than this, and the total year of 7 years of Horizon 2020, we have only 29 coordination of the projects, only 29. Within 1.5 year period, 24 coordination till now. I mean, till June 22, the year 2022. So this is also giving a kind of a message that, I mean, rather than the partnership, the coordination also giving a good kind of sense. Yes, so this is showing a more potential for the bilateral cooperation. Yes, and also there is more, I mean, visibility of the Turkish research ecosystem in global sense. And also this is a more recent, also last week has been a kind of a organization of WITRO, World Association of Industrial and Technological Research Organization. So the leadership and presidency position has been, will be done by us, by TÜBİTAK. So this is also giving a kind of a visibility. I think I am ending up. I am sorry if I put more time than expected. So which we think that, I mean, okay, the rankings is always said, I mean, it is not only a kind of a tool, but is an important tool if you want to read it carefully for the research management and also make the right impact in the higher education policies, either in a university level or in a country level of the higher education. So thank you very much for your attention.
Hasan Hocam, we thank you so much. Çok teşekkür ederiz for your excellent presentation. We also would like to congratulate you for the presidency of WITRO. I'm sure that you will add an impact to the society, international society, as well as you did to Turkey. So there are no questions so far, but you mentioned that collaboration will promote co-creation, and especially international collaboration has a higher impact. I think this was a message. Do you think, like you mentioned about environmental complex challenges, and you said that there will be a 10-year timeline to accomplish some results. Do you think collaborative research together with industry, let's say, will solve such problems in such a short period?
Okay, I think it's a good question, Feza Hocam, and I think now we are talking about, I mean, I think in the past that, I mean, we were talking about university industry and also university industry government, or so this is always so-called triple helix. But the COVID-19 has been shown that, so the type of interaction as within the three main stakeholders are not enough. The fourth one is the society. So any type of solution, I mean, should be, I mean, we are always saying we are producing the knowledge or technology for the society. This is not acceptable. The society has been clearly shown up during the pandemic, and also in climate actions, we will be very clearly. We are not only the stakeholder. I mean, we are not. I mean, we are not only expecting the impact on our behalf. We are as part of the system. So it's the quadruple helix. And now the fifth component is the climate. So the climate has been, I think, is a much more difficult type of challenge, because when we are talking about COVID-19, it is a cause, reason, or result. I mean, I think it's a kind of a result, not only the reason by itself. Because that, I mean, if we are saying that it is only a reason, so I mean, in future, I think we will have much more different type of viruses in the future. So therefore, the fifth component is the environment. So therefore, your answer to your question, I mean, if we are only considering the industry by itself, I think we will not be overcome with the challenge. So therefore, I think the role of the universities, especially in terms of the higher education policies, we should involve the society not only as an end user, is a part of the system and solution. So therefore, I think the universities should read the challenges and also the rankings very much carefully to find the right solutions.
Hasan Hocam, thank you so much for making time for us. And I would also like to announce that we will be announcing the rankings in a short time after this symposium. Tekrar çok teşekkür ederiz hocam, katıldığınız için, şeref verdiniz.
Estağfurullah. Ben teşekkür ediyorum tekrar davet için hocam.
Sağ olun. With your permission, I would like to proceed with our next speaker. And he's Sergei. Actually, he's now in Singapore, right? And he will be talking on the next year's ranking cycle, changes to the methodology and their implications for institutions of higher education. Sergei, the stage is yours.
Moderator. Much appreciated. First of all, teşekkür ederim. Thank you very much to you, Professor Dr. Ural Akbulut, and to you, Professor Dr. Hasan Mandal, for an opportunity to share the insights that we have in QS about the past, the present, and the future of the rankings, and many of the topics that Professor Dr. Hasan Mandal, the president of TÜBİTAK, will have been mentioned in his presentation. We would also attach special significance to some of the issues facing the rankings and facing the higher education system. So I will start sharing my screen shortly with the presentation. So I hope you can see it now, and I'm making it full screen. All right. Well, the next year, in 2023, we will have what we call the 2024 rankings cycle. Why 2024? Because the next year, we will have the academic year of 2023-2024, and some rankings agencies therefore publish rankings next year, which will be 2024 rankings. So it's the year of 2024 in which QS World University Rankings, our flagship rankings, will have its anniversary release, the 20th anniversary release. So it's probably the right time to review our approaches, to review our methodologies, and look at how the rankings have evolved over the course of the last 2 decades in the context of positions that Turkish universities have in our rankings. So we will speak about it in the next few minutes. So we always start our presentations with our mission, which is to enable motivated people all around the world to fulfill their potential by fostering international mobility, educational achievement, and career development. In other words, whatever we do with rankings, we do it so that young, talented people and their parents could make an informed decision about which university and which educational program could be the right fit for them, that could help bring out the best in these people and fulfill their potential in their future careers. So when we look at what we published this year, and QS World University Rankings 2023, which were published on the 8th of June 2022, included more than 1,400 institutions, to be precise, 1,422 institutions from 100 different locations. So to create these rankings, we looked at the initial sample of 7,000 most competitive institutions in the world. And out of these 7,000 institutions, we had selected 2,462, and then out of these 2,462, only 1,422 were included in the final version of the rankings. To create these rankings, to publish these rankings, we did 2 surveys, QS Global Academic Survey and QS Global Reputation Survey. And in these surveys, we had the highest attendance in the history of QS World University rankings. 151 academic experts told us which universities, in their opinion, are the best. And 99,000 employer experts also shared their opinion about the best, the most highly competitive institutions from the employment perspective. So we had 124 new entrants. So this is our biggest rankings, QS World University rankings ever published. So what's the methodology as of today? So the methodology has not published since the very first release of QS World University rankings back in 2004. So it's been almost 19 years, and the methodology has been essentially the same throughout this period. And the methodology is based on 6 indicators. In the upper part of the screen, you see what we call qualitative indicators. In the bottom part of the screen, you see what we call quantitative indicators. So the reputation indicators include academic reputation and employer reputation, and the quantitative indicators include faculty-student ratio, citations per faculty, international faculty ratio, and international student ratio. So has the time come to change this methodology? Because it's been here for almost 2 decades. So let's see. So all these 1,422 institutions are located in 100 countries and territories, and the biggest number of institutions came from the United States. Out of this 1,422 institutions, 201 are located in the US. 90 institutions are in the United Kingdom. 71 universities are in China. 50 institutions are in Japan. 48 institutions are in Russia. And then you see Germany, India, Italy, South Korea, and Australia in the top 10 countries by the number of institutions included in QS World University rankings. So how did the Turkish institutions perform in this year rankings? So we now have 24 institutions from Turkey in QS World University rankings. Previous year we had 21. So 3 new institutions from Turkey have been included in our flagship rankings. Currently, we have 1 institution in the top 500 of QS World University rankings, which is Koç University. 6 institutions from Turkey have improved their positions. 8 institutions have retained their positions. And finally, 7 Turkish institutions have lost their positions. So if you look at the performance of all these 24 Turkish institutions year over year, so you see that we have looked at the methodology, and this methodology has 6 indicators. So these 6 indicators are organized by performance in 2022 and 2023 in different colors. So for every indicator you see in blue, performance of Turkish universities in 2022, and in orange you see performance of Turkish universities by indicator in 2023. So if you look at the average score on the scale from 1 to 100 for each of these indicators, you clearly see that Turkish institutions have demonstrated improvement in employer reputation. So apparently, in the opinion of employers, employer experts that participated in our survey, the graduates of Turkish institutions have become much more competitive as compared to the previous year. And we also see very good progress in internationalization, which you can see in the indicators for international faculty ratio and international student ratio. At the same time, the academic reputation, we can say that it's on the same level, pretty much. And we see some decline, just very little decline in faculty-student ratio and citations per faculty. So if you look at different groups of indicators for the results of Turkish universities, we see that the academic reputation score and the employer reputation score are distributed for Turkish universities on these 2 graphs. On the left hand, you can see that this is the score that Turkish universities have on the scale from 1 to 100. On the right, you see exactly the same graph, but this time the data are distributed by the rank from 1 to 1,422. So it's essentially two, these graphs are the same. These two graphs are the same, but the distribution of data is a little bit different. So you see that the leader in academic reputation and employer reputation is the Middle East Technical University. No surprise. Number 2 is Istanbul Technical University. Then goes Bogazici, Koç, Sabancı, and Bilkent. So these are the leaders. Of course, we have other institutions like Hacettepe and Istanbul University, and you see the names on the screen. So these are the universities that have collected the biggest number of nominations from the academic and employer experts. Then we look at teaching and research, and exactly the same principle. On your left, you see the distribution of data for Turkish universities for two particular indicators. On the horizontal axis, you see faculty-student ratio. On the vertical axis, you see citations per faculty. On the left, you see the scores on the scale from 1 to 100. On the right, you see the ranks from the first to the 1,422. So you see that by faculty-student ratio, number 1 university is Sabancı, and Koç is the second most successful institution by this indicator. By citations per faculty, again, the Middle East Technical University is number 1, and then you have Koç, Sabancı, and Bilkent. So these are the leaders in Turkey by citations per faculty. And finally, we look at the internationalization, the number of international faculty on the the percentage of international faculty on the horizontal axis, and the percentage of international students on the vertical axis. So clearly, for international faculty, you have 3 leaders here, which are Bilkent, Sabancı, and Koç. And Istanbul Aydın University is currently number 1 institution in the country by the percentage of international students studying there. And obviously, you see many more other institutions on these graphs. And then you see the final positions of Turkish institutions in QS World University Rankings in 2023, and we can compare these positions in 2022. Those institutions whose positions are marked in the green color, they have improved their positions. Institutions whose positions are marked in the red color, you see they have lost their positions a little bit. And you see that the deep blue color are the new entrants. And then you have the brown color, which is for institutions that have retained their positions. And here you have the geographic distribution. So where do institutions in Turkey come from? Institutions that are included in QS World University Rankings. So you see that the biggest number of institutions are from Istanbul. Then you have 5 institutions from Ankara and 3 institutions from Izmir. And then you have other cities in Turkey that institutions in QS World University Rankings come from. So what's the next year? So the 20th anniversary release of QS World University Rankings. So we thought that the time had come for us to reconsider the methodology a little bit. And as the president of TÜBİTAK Waldemar said, 3 recurring topics that we have heard consistently from different groups of stakeholders, including from our advisory board, from students, from parents. And every year we do the international student survey, and we collect feedback from 130,000 institutions about the future of QS World University Rankings and their expectations from these rankings. So 3 topics that have come up quite consistently in all these conversations are sustainability, employability, and international research collaborations. So on the 26th of October 2022, we released our very first version of QS Sustainability University Rankings. And if you look at the list of institutions included in these rankings, this list is very, very different from those institutions included in QS World University Rankings. So it's a completely different set of data, a completely different methodology, but at the same time, a very much new list of institutions that are the best in sustainability by more than 50 different indicators that we considered for these rankings. Employment outcomes, well, 2/3 of students told us in the International Student Recruitment Survey that employability after graduation can be more important to them than the knowledge that they actually get in institutions. Obviously, employability doesn't come without knowledge, but getting a good job after graduation is really an important consideration for many, many students and their parents. So we just decided that we kind of have to include these statistics in the methodology of QS World University Rankings. And finally, as the president said, international research collaborations. We do believe that if institutions in the world start to work a little bit more closely together, then the world could be a better place. So, and this is how the methodology will look like next year. So this information is very new. I believe it was released just yesterday. So you are one of the very first few people who actually look at this methodology. So instead of 40% for academic reputation, we have 30%. For employer reputation, the weight has gone up a little bit from 10% to 15%. We also have 5% for employment outcomes, the new indicator, which is essentially the gradient employment rate. Citations per faculty has exactly the same weight as it had last year, and all these 20 years, 20%. Faculty-student ratio will go down from 20% to 10%. International Research Network, it's a new indicator that will migrate from our regional rankings to the flagship institutional rankings, QS World University Rankings. International Research Network is essentially a ratio. In the nominator of the ratio, you see the number of international institutions that your particular organization collaborates with. And in the denominator, you see the number of countries in which these institutions are located. So effectively, International Research Network is an indicator that measures diversity of your international research collaborations. Then we have 5% for sustainability, a new indicator included in the methodology of QS World University Rankings for the first time. And finally, we have international faculty ratio and international student ratio with exactly the same weights that we have always had for these two indicators in the rankings methodology. So what's next? The new development for the next year is our new regional rankings, QS Europe University Rankings 2024, that will be released on the 28th of June next year. Up until this year, we have published QS Emerging Europe and Central Asia University Rankings, so we will not do this anymore. We will do two different rankings instead. We released on the 8th of November this year, QS Asia University Rankings in institutions from countries like Kazakhstan, Kyrgyzstan, Turkmenistan, Tajikistan will be considered for the inclusion in QS Asia University Rankings. And QS Europe University Rankings will include institutions from Turkey as well. And the first release of these rankings, as I said, will be in June next year. And you see there are many more indicators, which is very, very helpful for rectors and for the teams of universities that are responsible for data analysis. Because if you have more indicators, you have more data that you can use for the development of your strategy at the university level, at the department level, at the level of individual researchers. So together with academic reputation and employer reputation, you have three centimetrics indicators: citations per paper, papers per faculty, and again, international research network. The faculty-student ratio is 5%, sustainability 5%. We have international faculty and international student ratios 5% each. And finally, we have outbound exchange students and inbound exchange students, which would be the indicators that should measure the academic mobility of every university included in our rankings. I can tell you, we have analyzed the impact of this new methodology on the positions of institutions in different countries. And as for QS World University Rankings, if we look at this methodology for QS World University Rankings, our flagship rankings, three countries have the biggest number of institutions that are expected to improve their positions. And these countries are Turkey, Australia, and Iran. So if nothing unexpected happens, I think just because of the changes in methodology, we probably will see some changes in the positions of Turkish universities next year in our rankings. So that was it from my side. So employability, sustainability, and international research collaborations clearly will be our main topics for the coming year. Thanks for your attention. Would be happy to answer any questions that you may have.
Sergei, thank you so much for giving facts and figures about Turkey. That was very valuable. There's in the chat box a small correction that gives the technical university should be cited as GTU. Maybe you take a note for that by Numan Akdoğan. And I would like to ask you, how are you going to obtain the employment outcome data? Is there a source for that? I know it's very important, but do you have a source for that?
Have different sources for it. First of all, we take the primary data from institutions themselves, and then we do very thorough analysis of what universities communicate to us. I can give you an example. In the country of Azerbaijan, we have two leading institutions, Baku State University and Azerbaijan State University of Economics. Baku State University reported that 26% of graduates find a job within 12 months after graduation. UNEC, or Azerbaijan State University of Economics, reported the number of 99%. Two different data points in the same country, two leading institutions. So we never say that the data are wrong. We always question the data. We have some assumptions. So we reached out to both institutions, and apparently in Baku State University, in their calculations, they included students who go to the army after graduation. They will have to go to the army for 1 year, even after they graduate from universities. So we asked the universities team to remove these students that went to the army from the calculations, and then the number had become much more reasonable. When it's 99%, well, we believe it's a little bit unlikely that 99%, almost all students find a job within 12 months after graduation. So we have some, I would say, tools that help us identify some outliers. When we have country statistics and we have some distribution of data for different institutions in the country, and we have some outliers in this data, we always try to understand what's behind those outlier data point. What's the underlying assumption? What's the formula that was used? What's the approach that was used by this universities team? So we do verify this data, but the data come primarily from the universities themselves. We always look at the national statistics. We look at exactly, and there are different sources from the ministries of labor, from the ministries of employment. And if the universities numbers are very, very different from what we can see at the national level, we always can question this data, which we do all the time.
Thank you so much. This is a challenging issue, I guess, and we will learn from you because some US universities publish this employment outcome, but it's not so common in Europe, as far as I know. So this is going to be a new approach by the QS group. Thank you so much. Second thing is that you also highlighted that international research collaboration, as well as Hasan Hoca, is very important, and you'll keep an eye on that. How about interdisciplinary studies? Because we know if you go for collaboration of disciplines, the impact is higher in their outcomes. Can you also comment on that? Would you consider adding this information into your database in the future?
Of course. Well, first of all, indirectly, the impact of interdisciplinary research is very well reflected in our methodology because interdisciplinary research is much more frequently cited because it has a much larger audience. Scientists from different research areas look at these papers, look at these publications, and they obviously cite these papers much more frequently than papers from a single subject, that's for sure. So these papers collect a lot of citations, and we have citations per faculty as one of our indicators, and then we have an international research network, which is obviously important when you do multidisciplinary research. Very often the percentage of papers published in international research collaborations for multidisciplinary research is much higher than the percentage of international research collaborations papers published within the country. Because you need centers of competences, you need pools of experts from different disciplines, from different countries. So this research is much more international, typically. Well, just to give you an example to make this event even more interesting, maybe. So sometimes linguistics not the area which is part of arts and humanities. Papers and linguistics don't attract a lot of citations. But last year, one of the researchers in our region approached one of the journals and said, I have found out that the languages in which you have more vowels, people in these countries with the languages that have more vowels, they spread coronavirus much faster than, for example, people who live in countries where the languages have more consonants. And the chief editor of the journal said, come on, it's not science. You're trying to create an interesting story that will be cited, so please go. So the guy actually went to a different journal, which is called Medical Hypothesis, Q2 on Scopus, the second quartile, and he published these papers. And these papers provoked a lot of debate. Some people supported this point of view. Some people actually disagreed with this point of view, but those who disagreed cited this paper as well. So the paper attracted a lot of citations. And when you look at the multidisciplinary research, such as, for example, life sciences and linguistics together, that's kind of very, very interesting and probably anecdotal example, shows you how much more attention papers from different research areas attract all around the world. So well, I do absolutely agree that the future of multidisciplinary research is bright and its impact will grow.
Thank you so much, Sergei. This was a very nice example. Thank you for sharing with us. With your permission, I would like to proceed to the next speaker, Isidro, our good friend from Madrid, and he will be talking about Webometrics for the Global South, incorporating open science and SDGs to the ranking.
Thank you very much. First of all, I am very grateful that you invite me to be here with the Turkish colleagues and other colleagues from the rest of the world. And I want to give my special greetings to Professor Ural because of our long association during the last years. I'm going to share my presentation now. Because as you know, Webometrics ranking is a bit different to other rankings. We have a slightly different point of view, and the main reason is because our coverage is including not only the top universities, but as if it is possible, it's not easy to do that, but we try to incorporate all the higher education institutions from the world. That is over 30,000 institutions now. And the idea to improve our ranking is to try to focus more on the Global South institutions in order they can improve not only in our ranking, but also in other rankings. And we are trying to promote this kind of activities. And first of all, we need to know what is the current situation regarding global rankings. And you know, most of them are focused on... sorry. Oh, sorry. Most of them are focused on the so-called global north, especially the countries from North America and Western Europe. And you know, there are bias because clearly they are accounting the prestige due to the use of the English. English is the lingua franca of communication. And also you need to consider the mobility of the top researchers. So many Nobel Prizes from United States probably came from other countries. And you can say this is a kind of a stolen talent that is important for achieving these top positions. When you consider other global north countries, like European ones, for example, you need to take into account that most of the research is not only done in the universities, but they are very important research councils like French CNRS or German Max Planck or TÜBİTAK in the case of your country. And finally, the problem with the global south countries, most of the countries in South America, Africa, many countries from South Asia, they have a very small institutions that have not been ranked, small in the sense not only the number of students, because sometimes some of them are very large considering the number of students, but basically due to the investment, the money investment in these institutions, and the problem regarding especially research mission, because sometimes they are not taking a lot of effort in research mission, but unfortunately, even worse is their activities are not well covered by the main bibliometric tools. So, for example, regarding the topic of talent aggregation, you need to consider that, for example, in the case of a Sergei ranking, only 13 universities from a total of 1,000 being ranked, only 13 of them obtain a total score larger than 50%. That means that probably this ranking is useful for obtaining a good classification of the top, I don't know, 200 or 300 universities, those universities with at least one Nobel Prize winner, but probably is not useful for others. Also, you need to take problems with the use of certain indicators, like, for example, open access, because sometimes open access is referring only to the papers published in APC journals who are changing authors for publishing in open web. And this is a problem because you can see, for example, in the Leiden ranking, that most of these APC open access journals are located in a very few countries of the world. So we need a different approach. And our approach, the ranking web or ranking Webometrics, that is now a well-known name, well, we try a different approach. We are using a different name because our objective is not to rank universities in reality. Our objective is to push universities to certain developments, especially regarding open access and open science. So the idea is we are going to reward universities that are clearly involved in open access and open science activities. It's a different method that the pool system promotes by other rankings. We are pushing the universities in order they can develop this kind of initiatives, and we are going to grant them with better ranks if they do that. Why web? Well, it's very strange. I need to justify this in 2022. Everybody knows that web is not the main scholarly communication tool. It's the only one currently. Everything is using web. Web is both global, that is very relevant, but also for the small and medium-sized institutions in Global South, it's also very local. Web is open, not only in the sense of open access and open science, but in many other ways. Web is cheap, very cheap. It's a very feasible tool for public relations. And web is built from both from the president or from the committees in the top of the university, but it's built also from the bottom up, involving everybody in the institution. So these are very important aspects of the use of the web for making a rank. Well, regarding ranking web at universities, we are going to be 20 years next year. We started in 2004. We are now covering more than 31,000 higher education institutions, not only universities in general way, but also small institutions. And as you know, we are using a model for our ranking that is a model that uses a ratio of 1-to-1 between activities performed by the university and the impact of these activities. So at the end, we are including all the Global South. Sorry, I am using the data from Turkey in my presentation, not because I think Turkey is part of Global South, but as a way to thank to the organizers for inviting me to focus on Turkey's samples, because I think it can be useful for you. But clearly, I think Turkey is not included in the Global South. And you can see the numbers. We are including a lot of universities from Global South, but unfortunately, not a large number of them are included in the top 1,000. But at the end, we are providing information for everyone. For example, in the case of Turkey, we have more than 200 higher education considered, and 8 of them are included in the top 1,000. This is especially interesting because you can say, okay, you are mostly web-based, and web-based is not exactly the same as research effort, and perhaps you are not collecting enough information about the research effort. It's not true. You can see we have almost 7,000 different institutions that have at least one top cited paper, a paper cited in the top 10% of the Scopus database. And you can see the total number of institutions involved is very high. So really, research is important, but not only for the research-intensive institutions in the top 1,000, but for everybody. So at the end, we are considering research as an important world-class building effect. But we have also another results that are interesting. For example, we discovered that there is a digital divide. Oh, everybody knows about digital divides between rich countries and poor countries. Not only, you can see from this slide that there is a digital divide between United States universities and European ones, and Western European ones. And this is very concerning because it means that the top universities in the world are mostly located in the United States, are not being reached by the rest of the continental Europe. Perhaps we can exclude the British universities, and we need to focus on this topic also. Well, but at the end, we are going to try to improve the global position of the Global South institutions. I add the asterisk referring to the fact I'm going to use Turkish examples that are not being part of the Global South, but this can be used as a model. This is our purpose. And you can see, for example, using a bottom-up approach. In the case of this personal page of a researcher from the Middle East Technical University, he has a web presence that is very relevant with a lot of information, but at the end, we have only 13 web pages. What is the approach of the top North universities? For example, this professor from Harvard. This professor from Harvard has an individual web page, and in this case, the contents amounts for almost 4,000 web pages. And this is important. People from Global South, from even some Western Europe universities need to be more actively present at the individual level on the web. This is the same from the point of view of top-down approach. For example, you can consider every researcher should have an archive identifier. So it's important because in this way you can know exactly what is the contribution of each individual. But in the case of Middle East Technical University, again, you can see the total number of profiles in ResearchGate is almost 4 times the number of archive identifiers. Even worse, when you consider not only the identifier, but the whole set of production, the metrics of the research, you have only less than 3,000 Google Scholar profiles. So this is very easy to solve, and the impact could be very, very huge, not only for our rankings, but also for the rest of the visibility of your activities. Another approach for top-down strategy to promote SDGs. And the SDGs can be done from a local point of view. And this is important because everybody is thinking of SDGs as a global problem that is not very important from the local point of view. Well, we propose universities be involved in local uses and trying to solve these local uses but without forgetting the global perspective. And this is very important because there is a lot of gaps, and the gaps should be filled at the local level. But again, with the point of view of this global perspective that can be taken into account in building this kind of information. Well, this can be solved in the easy way in the web. It's a portal. It's a portal regarding a few or several or all the SDGs. And for us, very important, all of this information, including research information, including information regarding SDGs, should be available in open. Not only open access to full papers, but open research to the tools, to the methodologies, to the data, but also open science for the general public, open science for professionals, for educations, for politicians, and at the end, open knowledge for the rest of the society. Society that should consider the information provided by the university as quality information. And this is very important when we are talking about contents in the web. Quality is a must. And sometimes the best option to have access to this quality information is through university knowledge. And university knowledge should be open. We are going to reward these activities. For example, if you are going to make repositories, open data repositories, you are going to have a video portal, or of course, you are going to develop a strong SDG portal, we are going to reward this in our rankings. We are preparing the new editions, taking this into account. And for us, it's important because this is a way for global South universities to improve the position due to the strategy, trying to develop a strategy to catch up global North institutions using this kind of approach. We are going to support that, even with more activities related to that. Well, trying to summarize, for us it's important that universities is going to be open to the society, sharing knowledge not only inside the academia, but especially now open science is opening the results to the rest of the society. It's important to consider that, okay, there is a lot of new strategies in the university regarding SDGs, for example, and the problems related to the SDG goals. But at the end, the web should be part of this strategy. It's a nonsense. It's not has no sense to have a strategy of the web completely not linked to the global university strategy. And finally, what is the best advice I can give to the people who ask me how to improve in our ranking? Well, I say two things. One of them is, please involve everybody. Everybody in the university is able to contribute to this task. And please try to consider both the local and the global approach when you are going to publish contents, quality contents on the web. And this was my presentations. Thank you very much.
Isidro, thank you so much for your presentation. It was excellent. Actually, I would like to ask, there is a concept of altmetrics for publication, like they count the number of sessions and the number of reads and downloads. Does this have a meaning? Like you are on the Webometrics, do you think that's something valuable?
Oh, yes. In fact, Altmetrics, from a disciplinary point of view, is part of Webometrics. And we are going to consider Altmetrics. The question is, Altmetrics is a very heterogeneous set of variables. Some of them are really bibliometric, and so has no sense to use, because in this case, you are using data that is already present on the ranking. But there are others that can be useful for us. We are going to use this. At the moment, we are going to stress to push the presence of the institutions as individuals, as organizations in the webs, in the social networks, having their own profiles, and not only to set up the profile, but to maintain the profile. So probably we are going to count the impact of these accounts. This is part of our aims, but clearly we are not in favor of using, for example, the number of visits. The number of visits is a very interesting indicator, but it has a big problem. The big problem is strongly correlated with the size of the university in terms of number of students. And so at the end, it's not very useful because you have a lot of visits from the students themselves. And we want to stress especially the impact from outside, not only from other institutions, academic institutions, but from general institutions. So we are going to, answering your question, we are going to use Webometrics, but not Webometrics as a whole, but choosing specific tools that can be useful for us and they have no size-related problems.
Isidro, my second question is on open access. Like in Turkey, we have a policy to have open access publications. Like this is the policy relevant to the European Union to publish in open access journals. And it's always mentioned that open access journals will have a higher read and citation impact. However, there are now some publications mentioning that conventional publication receives more citation than open access. What do you think? Is open access something valuable or good, or should we rethink our policy? Can I have your opinion, please?
Well, you need to take into account I am talking in representation of the Global South. Sorry, I am part of a country that is clearly Global North, but here, from a personal point of view, I am talking about the Global South. And for Global South, the best advantage is obviously open access journals. Commercial journals for many countries are not possible because the costs involved are very high. So first of all, you need to consider this from a policy point of view. For many countries in South America, in Asia, in Africa, is not a good option, the commercial one. So this is a political point, a political answer to your question. But the second point is, it's true that perhaps open access is only slightly better for obtaining citations, but there is a technical advantage. Is the time, because you obtain citations faster. Because opening your journal allows to receive probably not many more citations. There are several different studies with different results. If the advantage is true, probably the advantage is slight. But there is a strong advantage, especially for young people, because for young researchers, having citations early is an important advantage. So for political reasons and for some of technical reasons, you are probably right that in some cases commercial journals are still receiving a lot of citations, but they are publishing later. And they are receiving citations later. So especially for the young researchers, I think having the possibility of publishing in open access journals has some advantages.
Thank you so much, Isidro. With your permission, I would like to proceed to our next speaker, who is Waldemar from Poland. Waldemar, the stage is yours, and thank you very much for joining our symposium.
The pleasure is mine. Thank you, organizers. Thank you, Feza Korkuzus. Thank you, Professor Ural Akbulut, for inviting me to this conference. It is a great pleasure and honor to speak to the rectors, president, managers of Turkish and not only Turkish universities. It is not the first time. My friend Ural invited me to his conference several years ago. In 2016, as I remember. At the time, I was able to meet with and speak to you in person in Ankara. Today, I will speak about university rankings in my two capacities. Firstly, I am a ranking practitioner. For over 20 years, I have been publishing the Perspektywy University ranking, a ranking of higher education institutions in my country, in Poland. I am proud to say a ranking that is highly regarded and respected in my country. Every year, a large group of rectors, but also a minister or deputy minister of higher education attended the ceremony of publication of our ranking. You can see the last year ranking ceremony. Practically all best Polish universities, rectors of the best Polish universities are present. This is the winner, the lucky rector of the University of Warsaw, Professor Alojzy Nowak. As you see, to win in ranking is a big achievement for university and his rector. Secondly, I'm speaking as the president and co-founder of IREG. IREG, Observatory on Academic Ranking and Excellence, an international organization registered in Brussels and operating under the Belgian law, but with the working secretariat in Warsaw. I'm happy to say that several Turkish universities are members of IREG. As you can see, thanks to my experience, I look at university rankings from two perspectives. From the perspective of universities, of ranking of universities in one country, and from the perspective of international or global rankings. These two groups of rankings in some aspects are similar and in many ways quite different. They serve different purposes. I will speak about it later. Before explaining what IREG is, I want you to take note that the full name of ranking contains of two equally important words, rankings and excellence. The second, excellence, is particularly important because excellence is about quality, it's directly connected with quality. IREG as an organization cares about quality of university ranking. This is our main task. This year, 2022, is for IREG special. The idea of IREG came to life in Warsaw, Poland, and again in Warsaw last June. This is one of the first meetings when we established IREG Observatory as organization, because earlier from 2022, we organized several conferences as a group, as an expert, but in 2029, we decided to establish an organization. And this year in Warsaw, we celebrate 20th anniversary. This is our first meeting of the General Assembly of IREG Observatory. As you see in the first row, Professor Jan Liu from Shanghai, Professor Gero Federkay, and many authors of the international rankings. This year, we celebrate 20 years in the University of Warsaw when we started our history. IREG Observatory is an international institutional not-profit association of ranking organizations, universities, and other bodies interested in university rankings. This is the picture from one of the first meetings in Berlin, when the famous Berlin principles we accepted as a group. As you see, all main players in the higher education, in the rankings, in the strategy of internationalization are present. Ellen Hazelkorn, Jamil Salmi, and many, many others. Quality has always been in the center of our attention. It was in Berlin, as I said, in May 26, the Berlin Principles of Ranking of Higher Education were adopted. The Berlin Principles are available on our website, iregobservatory.org, in 8 languages, including Arabic and Chinese. Despite the lapse of time, the Berlin Principles have fully preserved their importance and relevance. They are a sort of ranking constitution, a set of basic rules that tell any decent ranking, national and international, should meet. I don't want to go into details, but I strongly recommend you read the Berlin Principles, because not everything that calls itself ranking is deserved to be called one. A recently published academic paper by Dr. Jelena Brankovic on IREG. This is a great honor, you know, to be analyzed by the group of international experts. So Jelena Brankovic is often critical to our organization, thus describes it referring to the Berlin Principles. IREG has tried to establish itself as a key actor in global ranking governance, one that would discipline ranking organization and hold them to account. We can, of course, discuss to what extent IREG has been successful in the role of the ranking watchdog, but there can be no question that IREG has put a public spotlight on the rankings and on their methodologies we discussed today. During our activities during the last 20 years, we initiated many initiatives connected with the quality of rankings. Let's start with the IREG inventory on national university rankings and international university rankings. Both inventories, they are in the electronic form, but also we publish in the paper, are not just a random list of tables that bear the name university ranking. A lot of work of international experts had been put in each inventory. I know there is always a lot of publicity and discussion about the global rankings, but I find national rankings more fair, more comprehensive. It is so because they describe situation in one country, in one system of higher education, in one low higher education system, in the specific social and cultural environment. To put in simple terms, national rankings compare apples to apples, but not apples and oranges. This is why we promote national rankings during the IREG conferences, during the IREG webinars and others. To be included in the IREG inventory, national or international, a ranking had to meet the following criteria. Include 2 or more indicators. The one indicator, this is not ranking, this is the simply some kind of presentation only. 2 or more indicators are absolutely needed for rankings. Rankings, truly rankings, be based on indicators that measure the core of the mission of the university, teaching and reputation. The number of students in the university, it is not ranking. We can very simply prepare rankings consisted only from one sort of data, but this is not rankings. Measuring core mission, teaching, research is absolutely crucial to be named as a ranking. And also we analyze only, we took into account on the rankings be published at least twice. Why? Because there is no difficult now to establish own ranking, but only ranking with good methodology, with published regularly, can be analyzed as a ranking. And also website must provide at least basic information on methodology. And in English. Why? Because many rankings based on the electronic instruments now are published, because you can receive many information from Google, from website, from the network, but we need information on author of the ranking, owner of the ranking and on the methodology. If methodology is not detailedly descriptive, we didn't analyze it. Our inventories also not include the so-called country rankings that are nothing more than an extract from one of the more global rankings. The country presentation of a country list of universities in global ranking, this is not national rankings. It is crucial. Why? Because if you will analyze these universities separately, you will receive the absolutely different results, because this is the specific of the mathematical instrument that extract from the big rankings. It is not national rankings. Now we can meet many press information, many press releases that in the, for example, in the QS or THE or Shanghai ranking, we occupied the second or third or 10th position in country. Not. You occupied, your university occupied the 10th position in the group of your country institution, but in Shanghai, THE or QS rankings. This is crucial because extract for us, the data derived from the main ranking, it is not national rankings. We took a similar approach and applied similar filters while publishing the second edition of the IREG Inventory of International Rankings. The international inventory, in addition to 15 main general global rankings, includes several groups of rankings. This is the global global rankings by subject. This is the regional university rankings. I don't know to name them because we know that this group, business school rankings, this is another different group, because the methodology of business school rankings is not based on the classical data, the number of professors, the number of international students, the citation, because in this group, the main important is the salary after graduating, after this MBA courses. Also, the new group of rankings appeared during the last several years. It started from the green metrics rankings, and now the THE impact rankings, and from this year QS sustainable ranking. This is new approach to the ranking methodologies. Why? Because up to now we compare only the data, general data on the universities, but this is a new approach. We analyze in what percent university is familiar with the sustainable development goals. I think that this approach is very perspective, not only on the sustainable development goals, but in different also area. But we should use this approach very carefully, because not everything could be analyzed using the rankings as the tool, as the instrument. Rankings are important, are very useful, but not for all problems facing our civilization. By imposing certain rule, I believe we at IREG are indirectly contributing to better standards in ranking. Requiring that at least basic information on the methodology, we contribute to the transparency. This transparency is very, very important. The other way IREG try to improve quality of rankings are voluntary review of or audits of rankings. We started this initiative not 10 years ago. only a handful of rankings actually agreed to go through this rather rigorous process. However, the detailed explanation of the way how experts selected by IREG evaluate a ranking serves as a guideline for every ranker, regardless if they want to apply for the IREG approved label or not. Among this is celebration of the first audit in 2014. As you see, QS was the first global international ranking positively audited, and Perspektywy university ranking, I am very proud, was the first national rankings also positively audited by independent team. It was very serious team. I remember that Jamil Salmi was the head of the Perspektywy audit team. Among activities of IREG, the most known certainly are the annual IREG conferences. They have been organized in many different countries over the past 2 decades, but not organized the IREG in Russia. I see it, and I think that in several next years it will be impossible. This is the reflection connected with the situation in Europe, especially that Poland, as you know, we are the neighbor of the Ukraine, and this is one of the reflection not connected with rankings. What IREG conference are? This is I see several pictures from previous hour. This is the Warsaw, this is the Belgium, this is the Bologna. University of Bologna was our host. Good. This is for them who attended. It is very important. There is at least the role of IREG conferences are best described by Philip Albach. This is from his book on the research handbook on university rankings. We are proud that we are this organization when the different partners can meet and discuss on the rankings. Some experts would like to see IREG play the role of watchdog when it comes to rankings. Well, IREG is an organization that has many different stakeholders. The very fact that IREG invites to its conferences all major ranking organizations does not weaken the autonomy of IREG. They may present their case, but at the same time, they must face criticism coming from those they rank, the universities. In any case, let's make it clear, IREG is not paid or subsidized by ranking organization, but bigger ranking organization. University rankings have become very popular. There are a lot of them. They enjoy attention of the media. It is quite natural that with growing popularity, rankings have become subject of criticism. Some of the criticism may have some merits. It seems that two most visible and powerful ranking organizations, one of them is represented by Sergei Khristoliubov. They started several years ago with organizing of many public events. They often use rankings to support the commercial operations. Summits. Every year, we attended many ranking summits. Now, in every week, you can be you can attend IREG summits organized by TAG. I visited 4 weeks ago TG Summit in New York 2 or 10 days ago. QS organized big Asia Summit. We have so many. Summit by definition is something top, biggest. When you look at the calendar of ranking-related events, there are so many summits on the horizon that they obscure the view of the Himalayas. Oh, this is an impression of our graphic, how many ranking summits now is organized. Compared with this activities, the Himalaya is small and no seen mountain. I want to address another criticism of university rankings. Some writers and experts want rankings to take into account too many things. As I said, we must keep in mind university rankings are what they are. University rankings are what they are. We cannot expect rankings to solve all problems of our civilization. Universities, as long as they have existed, have served two purposes: teaching and research. A good university ranking should, as well as possibly, reflect these two functions. Plus, of course, the element of knowledge transfer, social engagement, but teaching and research should be always in the center of our attention. Summing up, I would like to emphasize that IREG has a room to grow. There is a need for a platform where the creators of rankings and their key audience, especially the academic world, can meet on a neutral ground. Both sides need to talk to each other in the condition of elementary comfort to all parties. Therefore, the formula of IREG as an organization that recognizes the value of rankings, but also is firmly embedded in the global academic discourse, will gain importance. Let me, second time, recall Philip Altbach. I will not read this quotation, but the challenge is to understand the nuances, uses, and misuses of the rankings. And seminars, meetings such today we provide, it is very important in this direction. Thank you very much for your attention.
Waldemar, thank you so much for your always nice and excellent talk. You spotted on research and teaching is the most important items of rankings, and we agree with you. And you also mentioned that rankings cannot solve all problems. There's actually one question, I'm not so sure if it's directly related to you, from Yeliz Çakır Koçak. She wrote it in Turkish, but she wants to know, should universities themselves be responsible to upload their whole data to accessible electronic sites? Because you mentioned there's a lot of organizations and rankings pull out data from electronic sites. So is it the responsibility of the university to do that? Like our university always asks, please upload your information, please upload your information to these sites.
This is a very crucial and important question. Why? Because we have not in Europe and globally the reliable data of information on higher education. We have several big international organizations, United Nations, UNESCO, specialized organization. In Europe, we have European Commission, we have OECD, but any of these organizations up to now is, all these organizations are not able, to prepare and present the good, checked, trusted data. This is the reason why the ranking appeared, in my opinion. Because if you want to compare universities in a specific country or globally, only rankings up to now, only rankings can help you. I think that the question with presenting data is that every country has its own system of higher education. Many of them are similar, but not only. You know, how to compare the situation in Azerbaijan, this is close to Russia, with the situation in Chile, I don't know, in Brazil, in the Canada, United States, and other. And that there is one of the main questions to improve the quality of rankings, because if you ask universities to present data, that is not easy for your experts who is involved in this activity. Why? Because the data sent by universities to QS or to THC, they are not the same. The professor is in every ranking system. Professor is has his own definition. In QS, if you have not full-time professor, okay, part-time professors can create one full-time professor. In THE, this is the absolutely different way. And the task of the international organization, like EU Commission, like UNESCO, is to establish this data. Why? Because if not, it will be very risky. No, one example. One of the Polish universities, I know the situation in Poland very much, surprisingly, was named as one of the best in the last QS World Academic Ranking. Why? I asked this the director. I know him. The different. This is the small university, specialized agriculture university, but they was published as the better compared with Jagiellonian University, University of Warsaw, and other. Why? Because the colleagues from QS, they not received the data from the university, but they only decided to take data from the university website, and they use absolutely wrong data. Now, for example, the number of the professors was double in the statistic of the QS, and now there is a problem how to improve this, because QS reject, the ask of the rector to improve the data. I'm sorry. Sergei, sorry, you can inform Ben Sauter and your colleague. University are not sure what to do. Why? Because the high position, it's okay, but they also know that next year they drop very much. And this is one of the questions, to publish or not to publish. In Poland, we have the very good special system of data of higher education. Poland, this is the name of the Poland. In the United Kingdom, there is a good HESA statistics system. And I think that this is one of the questions. There is no simple advice to publish or not to publish. Maybe publish, but this example, I talked on it, that the wrong data was taken because it was a website on the Polish. In the website in Turkish, you will publish your data. Maybe somebody from the ranking organization, from the expert, will take not the right data. There is a risk, but the rankings, it is at all risky business.
Thank you so much for your excellent sample and explanation. With your permission, I would like to proceed to our next speaker. Gali is with us. She will talk about the university rankings and the future of research evaluation. Gali is joining us from Israel, from hometown. And thank you for being with us, Gali. The stage is yours. Please go ahead.
Thank you very much. Indeed. Thank you all. I really appreciate the opportunity to be here today and talk a little bit about some of the things that we have in mind at Clarivate when we think about university ranking and really in general where research assessment is going. I would like to start again, like my colleague, with a quote that I think is very appropriate here. Rankings also have opponents and proponents, yet what is clear is that whatever one's own view, it is impossible to ignore them. And we all on this call and anybody who listens know this very well. You know, I don't need to read all that to you, I'm sure you're all aware, but let's think about all the different aspects of why rankings or ranking system and how they influence the university ecosystem in general. So of course they are used by students, right, to make decisions about where they are going to study, especially for international students who try to select the best institution for the future. It is important, of course, for governments and funding, for employers as well, who come to recruit candidates from university and to the job market. That was also mentioned here a couple of talks ago. Rankings are crucial for any scientific collaboration and also technology transfer, right? And university leadership, you know, the ranking themselves offer quite a bit of insights as to where the university is compared to others in its own disciplines, specialties, and programs. So in general, rankings do influence an entire ecosystem that goes beyond just looking at it as where the university compares to others. Now, before I begin talking about what we do here at Clarivate, I wanted to really take a moment to reinforce our philosophy when it comes to anything that has to do with research assessment, okay? It is important to remember that at Clarivate, we have a lot of experts in the fields of bibliometrics and scientometrics. And we want to make sure that everybody who listens to this talk is aware that we are committed to responsible use of metrics, which means that we discourage any inappropriate use of indicators or metrics such as the GIF. We have to remember that for each one of these indicators or metrics, there is a target, and we cannot take them and just use them in any context, especially when it's inappropriate. We encourage the use of profiles, not metrics, that I'm going to talk about in a minute. And we're also actively exploring a variety of data sources to expand our view about indicators of impact and develop innovative indicators around diversity, sustainability, mobility, and collaboration. Now, for some of you of the call, I'm sure you have met and known the late Professor Henk Mood, who passed away about a year ago. Henk and I used to work very, very closely together. And one of our papers and work frame that we worked on for several years was the multifaceted approach to research assessment framework. I have the pleasure today to work at Clarivate, where we are revitalizing, developing, and looking at this framework. And together with my colleagues across Clarivate and across the content teams, we're trying to find real solutions to address these principles that Henk put together and which we believe are going to help advance the arena of research assessment. So our three principles that Henk and I put in the paper were: first, research assessment must take into consideration a variety of impact measures, okay? We've talked about it. You heard other speakers talk about societal impact, academic impact, economic impact, and so forth. The one thing that we wanted to emphasize was When we look at assessment, we have to define the unit of assessment. What does that mean? We have to ask ourselves, what are we measuring, or who are we measuring? Sometimes it sounds pretty trivial, but it isn't. This is how indicators or metrics were misused, right? If I think I have to assess a journal, okay, I can use a GIF. When I assess a researcher, I cannot use GIF for that, right? If we took the time to closely define the unit of assessment, we will avoid making mistakes of using metrics that are inappropriate for the unit of assessment. The third principle says, today, we're all blessed with technology. As some of the speakers mentioned, there's many sources of data, and we must try and attempt to use a wider variety of data points and bring them into the assessment as much as we can in order to get a wholesome, more complete view on what we are trying to assess or measure. Now, I'm going to go, I know I have 20 minutes and we can talk about this for a long time, and you will have these slides at the end of this seminar, but I wanted to give you some examples of how we're thinking about these types of facets. The first one, scholarly impact. Okay, traditionally we heard we're looking at publications, peer-reviewed journals, books, conference proceedings, etc. as our baseline. This was the scholarly impact. Let me ask you, what about fraudulent, right, research? What about all the papers that are being retracted due to misconduct, due to plagiarism, due to fake peer review? We have, this is our opinion, we have to take those into consideration because unfortunately, they're becoming more and more prevalent, and we think should be considered when we talk about any type of assessment, any type of evaluation. We have to take those into consideration as well. Now, I want to caveat everything that I say by saying each university or institution can decide about the weight that they give each one of these, right? That's really up to them. But we believe that issues of reproducibility that are becoming crucial these days and retractions, we have to bring them into play when we talk about scholarly impact, because those are impactful as well, especially after COVID-19, we all know that. So we recommend measurement of scientific impact beyond publications and citation to include also integrity, reproducibility, openness, Isidro, for your point, and collaboration, right? You can weigh them any way that you feel fit for your institution, but we believe they should be a part of this. When we talk about academic research, right, which is quite different from the scholarly impact, again, let's think about the unit of assessment. Is it a researcher, a research group? Are we talking about an institution? Are we talking about department? And we feel that we need to take into account, let's take, for example, number of graduate students, right? Those are the pipelines for the future. Another speaker spoke about that. What about employment? Another speaker also mentioned that advancement, training, mentorships, right? Those things are not to be seen in publications or citation measures. Those are crucial for any educational institution, because that's what they're there for, right? To educate the next generation. We have to find a way to bring these types of programs, these types of activity, and make sure that they're at the heart of any assessment beyond citations. We often talk about societal effect. Isidro mentioned that as well. Many people think, okay, this is social media. Not necessarily. I'm not saying that social media is not a good measure. What we are saying, let's take a look at the news media, the traditional news media, right? The news media that gets, edited, and it gets to, they have facts, they check their facts, etc. Not just social media. Anybody can go on social media and put whatever they want. But if a researcher, right, for example, ends up in the evening news, get invited to CNN, he's being referred to as an expert, right? For those of you who don't know, before Clarivate, I was 7 years the Dean of Libraries at Mount Sinai Hospital System and the School of Medicine. And one of the things that we looked at when we came to look at the productivity of a researcher wasn't just their hundreds of papers, but also they were invited to give talks, to be interviewed in the news, in the New York Times. These are important venues, at least in the US, that really show that a researcher is quite at the heart of the scientific arena, right? Readership, downloads, clicks, views. If we think about citations, right? Citations are the very end of the papers that anybody reads when they write papers, right? When we write a paper, we can read 100 maybe or 50 articles, but we don't cite them all, right? We don't end up citing all of them. So if my paper wasn't cited, but it had, I don't know, 1,000, 10,000 downloads or clicks or views, shouldn't that be something to look at as well? By whom too, right? So here's some things to think about as well. How can we take those and integrate them in the assessment process? A lot of us are looking for ways to measure economic impact, right? We all know that, at least at Clarivate, we are making an effort to show, I'll show you in a bit, patents for researchers, right? What patents we're citing them or what patents they had. Intellectual property is a great way to measure economic impact. But also, let's think about startups. Let's say a researcher or a PI goes ahead, create a startup company, which then employs people, creates new jobs, right? We have to bring that into consideration, right? At the moment, we're not necessarily doing that. Shouldn't that be something that we, that has a direct economic impact? What about technology transfer? We have that data, or at least some of you out there, the speakers or listeners, have that data. If a PI ends up, developing something or selling a technology to a corporation that then creates it, sells it, employs, right? Those are other things that we need to calculate. We can do it on an institutional level. We can do it on a country level, right? And again, I'm not taking away from the difficulty of collecting these types of data, not at all. I admit it, it's not easy. What I'm trying to say is there are things we should think about and then create initiatives that will help collect that data, because that will help us create rankings, create assessment that is really balanced, right? And takes into consideration many aspects. Now, a quick overview, really, you can read it later, about what the unit of assessment is. Again, this goes back to my initial point. Sometimes we forget what we are assessing. We use metrics for things that shouldn't be used for, because we don't necessarily take the time to think, okay, what am I assessing? What are the valid metrics we have to use for that? We can't just throw numbers at everything without taking into consideration that when we talk about a researcher or a faculty member, they do a lot more than just publish or get cited. They teach, they mentor, right? They research and help postdocs, they have labs, they go out there to the world and present. They represent their institution. So let's take more time to define the unit and define the questions that we would like to answer. Now, in the next couple of slides, I want to show you some of the initiatives that I am working on with the Institute for Scientific Information at Clarivate and Clarivate overall to try and answer these exact points that I was talking about. Okay, in Web of Science right now, and this is actually free, even if you don't have a Web of Science subscription, the new and enhanced researcher profile now contains many aspects that were not there before. This is a good example. This is a good example. When we talk about researcher assessment, what about all the peer review that they do? Don't you think that takes a long time and effort and should be somehow credited to the researchers that take the time to do them, right? We don't get paid for that. But then we dedicate a lot of time and effort to provide solid peer review for the community. So in the researcher profile, you will see peer review. If anybody decides to make their peer review open and will integrate that into their profile in a way to showcase this type of work that goes beyond publications and citations. We also make room for editorials, right? If you're an editor, if you are part of an editorial board, in the next couple of months, we'll have grants and also patents. Some of them are already there that you can see when or if your article was cited by a patent, awards that you've been giving, right? And it's all syncing to ORCID. And I want to emphasize again, this is open. This is not behind the Web of Science subscription. The reason is because we want to make sure that the community goes and each researcher goes into their profile and actively update them with the information and data and insights into their work. The more complete these aspects are, the better for anyone in the system. And again, when you have that on a researcher level, of course, quickly you can aggregate to an institutional level, discipline level, country level, and so on. So our efforts are in reaching the data, metrics, content on individual level in order to be able to answer what are other activities that this researcher is doing that goes beyond publication citation, right? So this is one example. The other examples, for those of you who do have insights or Web of Science, we are trying to encourage people to look at the researcher work in a more wholesome way. Sometimes, we make mistakes of comparing people in different academic career level or academic age to one another. And we are looking at publications and citations sometimes in an isolated kind of way. So we implemented what we call the author beam plots that show publications over time and how they match to the percentiles of citations within that discipline in the year range that you're looking at. You have the option to define your years, to look at the impact overall, right? Not just a one sort of narrow view of this is the number of publication, this is the number of citations. No, what are the impact? What is the impact overall? Citation location. I think Isidro, you mentioned that there was someone that mentioned the internationality. That's also important, right? If you have impact beyond your country, right, that should be taken into consideration as well. Whatever you think the weight for that should be, it should be this researcher is really international. Citation to his or her work are coming from all over the world. So we help you look at that through insights and Web of Science. This is just an example of some of the other metrics you can see in insights. For example, you have a long list of indicators that normalize citation impact, that normalize by discipline, that normalize by country. We are trying, the concept is here to have our customer have as many points to look at and examine. Baseline for global, baseline for the country, baseline based on institution, baseline based on topics. Now, some of the new things that we're working on that we're very excited about are new indicators that speak directly to sustainability. One of them is looking at diversity, equity, and inclusion. I know this is very important to all universities all over the world. And we are doing some developments to try and give a university or government by topic or by discipline an overview of, for example, gender. Why? Because we believe that giving that overview will enable policymakers, university policy, government policy to say, oh, here is where we have a gap. Maybe in this discipline, in this topic, we have a gap that we need to attend to. This type of things will never be at the individual level. I want to make sure everybody knows this here. This is not our job to identify individual people. We're looking at mapping gender and ethnicity based on a discipline, based on a topic. It could be aggregated to give decision makers an opportunity to examine gaps and ways, maybe ways to tackle those. These are some examples of disciplines that we looked at for the United States in our experimentation. And you can see, you know, authorship, right? And how authorship is divided in biochemistry. We're looking at it over time to see if there's a change in authorship. Are, you know, minority groups are entering into authorship, yes or no? And our job is to really inform or try to inform government policymakers and university policymakers. When I was at Sinai, I remember the leadership at Sinai wanted me to examine, right, the distribution of male and females by discipline and by journals, etc. And I worked with Clarivate. This is a part of the report that I gave them. And we did it based on department, based on the topic, based on the journal quartiles. We were able to show them a picture of the situation or the gender equity at Sinai. I wanted to say beyond this is that the leadership took this report and really acted on it. They came together and they started initiatives for recruitment, for mentorship, for development because of this report. And I was lucky to do it with the Clarivate analytical team. Some other things that we want to talk about is mobility. Mobility is very, very important for countries, right? It's very important for universities as well. The reason why we're mapping and implementing mobility is to show on a country level or an institutional level, where are people going? Do they stay there? Do they come back? Do they go for training? Where do they go after? This we feel will help also for recruitment, because there are pockets of expertise all over the world. And for a university that decides to develop a certain program or expand the program, we believe that showing mobility and expertise movement can help inform a university better where to go and find experts or where to develop their own. And we did this on a disciplinary level. This is another aspect of mobility, which is institutional mobility. I don't know if you have seen in the news lately, but there's a huge academic brain drain happening right now. Big corporations and companies are recruiting academics, giving them better salaries or better benefits, and they're taking them away from universities. People leave, and it's called academic brain drain. And what we're trying to do here is, again, show a university or a country by discipline where its people going. If they start in a university and then move to corporate or government or research institution, do they come back or do they stay away? This kind of overview can really inform university to take into consideration what do we need to do to cultivate and keep and develop our own academic staff. Of course, as you know, Clarivate is working very, very hard on mapping all of our content to the SDGs. You can see that implemented in Insights, and it will be available very shortly on Web of Science as well. You can refine that by research topic and citation topics, which is quite unique. So it's not just a big, very general description, but you can actually drill down. As I mentioned, this is a screenshot of an article and its citation in patents as well. If you look at that, there's a breakdown of all the citations and also patent citations to help collect this type of data that help inform economic influence. Another example where benchmarking can be done quite easily by looking at patents as well. This is now implemented in our Insights, so you can take a look at a university level or an individual level for that matter. To Isidro, I think you mentioned preprints or open science. Our preprint citation index is going to be launched very, very soon. We are indexing a complete index of all the preprints in our citation index. This is coming, I believe, in a month or so in Web of Science. Now, I realize that preprints are controversial. I realize that some may consider them, some may not. It is true. However, preprints are a really great source for innovation tracking. If you think about it, they are the first to be published. They're there. And if someone is interested in looking at innovation, right, this could be a really, really good source to see what is coming up or what is happening now. So this is going to be available soon. Okay, so concluding, we have talked about new facets, right? So sustainability, inclusion, equity, collaboration, mobility. Those are some of the things that we have to look at. And in order to drive that excellence for the university, right, we have to look at the different engagement points and the outcomes, right? So using reputable support services, workshops, quality workshop, and of course, I'm here as Clarivate. We do have the data and the expertise to support any type of new development on new facets of the research assessment and university ranking. A couple of reports for you. Those are free to download, because I mentioned them before. Profiles, not metrics, available on our website. This is a great report looking at sustainability, mentorship, education, diversity, inclusion, right, as ways to measure and evaluate. This is our ethnic report that we've done, our experiment, also available for download for free on our website. And finally, our latest report on global university rankings, also available on our website. We have collected a group of experts from all over the world to share their experience with rankings, university rankings. So thank you very much. This is my email address if you would like to ask any questions after. And please visit the Institute for Scientific Information website. All of our reports are there, our blogs, webcasts, etc., available for free. Thank you very much, Faiza. I guess we'll see some questions.
Gali, thank you so much for this excellent presentation. Very impressive improvements and also innovations in the Clarivate website. I would like to ask you, what will be the data source of grants? Like, are you going to go to NIH or NSF to ask for the grants or come to TÜBİTAK? What's going to be your approach?
Right, so as you know, Clarivate merged with ProQuest a few months ago.
Yeah.
And luckily, ProQuest has some very impressive products and very unique content that is now a part of the what we call One Clarivate. So with that, the ProQuest team has grant information and grant content that they collect from several countries, like the US, from the European Union, from European country, etc. I just want to say also that the philosophy of Clarivate now is to try and look at the entire content that we have, all the different data that is coming from all parts of the company, and really in the next few years, merge them to talk to each other so that, you know, we have all these data together and can utilize them for meaningful analysis. So that will be development in the next couple of years for us.
Oh, perfect. That's very good news. Thank you so much. I think there are no questions yet, but if there are any, they can reach you through your email. Ural Hocam, would you like to wrap up the symposium because we're approaching the end? Ural Hocam, are you there?
Second, I forgot to my microphone. Well, thank you, Faiza. Thank you to all of the distinguished speakers. We all enjoyed all of them. And I'd like to give my appreciation to our team. They made this symposium easily designed, and I was afraid that we would make some mistakes, but thank you, the URAP team, for the nice organization. And once again, I am really grateful to our speakers, and I hope to see you all maybe 2 years after in our 7th symposium. Thank you again for giving us these invaluable speeches. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Ural Hocam. And for the closing, I just wanted to notice that we have the Teachers' Day in 2 days. November 24 is the Teachers' Day here in Turkey. And our team, the URAP team, wants to thank to all our teachers, including professors, who shaped our lives through research. They can touch the future by education, and I think they deserve the very best for their lives. Thank you very much for attending, and thank you being with us. And goodbye.